Hey guys, something different today. As you can see, we're joined by a very special guest. We've got a very, very rare opportunity to be with Mr. Rare Dragon Fruit himself, Paul, as you can see. And thanks
Well,
for
thanks
joining
for
us.
having this opportunity. I'm excited to collaborate with you guys out there on the other continent, a little bit down under, and I'd like to learn from you guys as well. And it's really exciting just because there's so many varieties that are bouncing back and forth across our continents, and I'm sure that you guys have some, and we have some. I've noticed that you have some of the Paul Thompson's varieties that have been out there. I also know that interviewing some people, I've learned over the years that quite a few of Edgar Valdivia's seedlings have made their way out there and started the program in some sense out there. So yeah, I'm really excited. This is going to be fun, and I hope you don't stump me.
Well, I guess we'll wait and see. I've got a little list of some questions. I don't know how deep and meaningful we're going to get. I thought I'd extend an invite out to the community as well. And I grabbed a few questions from them as well. So hopefully, at least we can test that brain of yours. We've got that rare opportunity, as I said, to pick your brain. I hope we don't just skim the surface.
Sure, fire away. Let's see the first one.
Well, I guess first question, what temperature is it over there at the moment? I just sort of looked out the window. We're currently 36 degrees Celsius, which I believe is about 97 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, you
So,
got to speak American. I don't understand Celsius in this world yet, but no, honestly, this has been the driest season in 176 years here. So we're really deficient on rain. I've lived here my whole life. I actually grew up on an avocado farm. Um, as a kid, my dad had 3 acres of avocados, and he was a professor. But that's kind of where I got into plants. And we used to get rain around, I'd say, every year after Halloween. And this year we've had no rainfall yet, and it's been really good for the dragon fruit. I'll tell you that. I mean, very minimal rust. They think it's spring; they're getting a lot of growth, but also we are really hot and dry, and that affected their recovery after fruiting. So, in other words, plants that hadn't fruited have been growing awesome, but the plants that produced a lot of fruit and worked really hard all season are having the hardest time recovering I've ever seen. So, a lot of yellowing. I think personally, it's a lot of the low humidity, and then we're having big differentials in temperature from 40 degrees at night, and then like yesterday was 86 degrees here. I don't know Celsius, but in
yeah.
Fahrenheit. So, that was January 3rd or whatever. So we had a heat wave. I'm having to water. I was in a greenhouse, one of my greenhouses today, and I was shocked about how many plants have rooted. Because sometimes the off season they'll take 4 months to root. But I was just grabbing American beauties left and right, and they were all rooted and healthy and happy. So it's been a very atypical season here for the off season. And I even picked like half a dozen fruit today.
In the middle of winter, center of
Yes,
winter.
sir.
Oh,
Yeah, a little Townsend Pink, Voodoo Child, Sugar Dragon, a couple no IDs and White Flesh and more. So
yeah.
it's been the longest season. So personally, it's bad for all the native plants, but for dragon fruit or pitahaya, it's been awesome. So it's been a good year. Last year was really wet, so really heavy rust. And if you had the wrong potting soil, I saw a lot of the plants that had compost when I started. I used a lot of Fox Farms and uh, and things like that because I was learning from the bigger YouTube channels the right way, and it had some problems. So I've like this season I really focused on using soilless growing media like sand, a couple other things I've posted recently like sand, pumice, perlite, humic acid, biochar, just getting rid of even peat moss. I feel is, and I'm not confident in sharing like, hey, everybody needs to do this, but I'm noticing that even being free of peat moss has been really helpful for my plant health. So I only root in Sunshine Mix number 4 for the past 6 months or so. And now, like I said, like all my new pots, I'm using no peat moss at all or any form of it. And so far, so good. I just did an update the other day on our oldest sand pot, which is like 19 months now. It's the healthiest plant I'd probably say in the collection.
And I guess for those that don't know where you are based, whereabouts are you in the States?
Oh, sorry. I am in San Diego, California. I'm a native to the area, but where I live, it's a little north of the city, and then I'm inland a bit with some protection of some mountains. And so we're a little hotter and drier. We're zone 9B, if that helps. We get lows down to 29 degrees, 28 degrees, but for very short durations. And mature dragon fruit can handle that. So they do really well. I also grow on a north facing slope. So I've learned over the years, I was growing on the south facing side because we have about 2 acres, and the plants weren't doing as well. And so once I moved them on the north facing slope, I feel like they're happier, healthier, but they're also more delayed than people around me. So like my flower buds might start 2 weeks after somebody. So if
Okay.
I'm sitting on Facebook, I get a little envious, and then I just got to think, well, we're north facing, we got to be patient. And then I guess the positive is of it is that our season extends. So when everybody's picking their last fruit, I'm still having some green fruit. So even just where you place your plant, north facing, south facing, east, west, it can affect growth. So
Definitely.
yeah, so there's the long answer for where I live.
No, fair enough. And for those that have stumbled across this and have no idea who I am as well, I am Dreaming Dragons. I am probably based 1 hour, maybe a little bit over an hour north of Sydney, so in Australia. So other side of the world. I don't know my globe perfectly, but I'd say we're just about probably opposite corners of the world.
Mhm.
It's about 7:30 p.m. where we're recording with yourself, and it's about 2:30 p.m. my time here, other side of the world. So yeah,
But you're a day ahead, right? So
yeah.
I'm Saturday, you're Sunday.
Sunday afternoon. I got work in the morning, which is lovely. Looking forward to that. All right, so I thought we'd start off first of all just with some quick fire questions. You can answer them longer, if you so would prefer, but I thought I'd hit you up with some quick fire questions
Okay, so
first.
try to keep it short, you're telling me. I can
No,
do
no,
that.
no. Go long, go long. But I guess first of all, dragon fruit statistics. How many varieties do you have? How many trellises do you have? What's your statistics, roughly?
I honestly I stopped counting at 400 varieties that were named, and I am very savage with my breedings. So I probably have currently like 600 seedlings right now, but I'll kill most of them. I put them out in different temperatures, and I like to stress them out and see how they respond.
So 400 last count, probably closer to the four digits.
Probably, yeah, yeah. I don't want to know, and I don't want to know anymore, to be honest with you. But I'm also quickly removing the ones that aren't making the cut for me. And I've learned over time that, as advertised is not always as they really truly taste to me. So, I'm being more selective, especially with all the renames that have occurred over time. But good fruit is good fruit, and that's what I'm focused on. And I have a very intense breeding program that I don't share publicly. I know what I want to do and how I want to do it. But I would share publicly. I've learned personally that people say if you cross two varieties that it's 50-50. I definitely believe in dominant traits. I've learned from other farms as well. A really strong trait I would say is a costarricensis. So you could take like an Asunta 2 and pollinate it with a costarricensis. Ocamponus are really dominant. Undatus are undominant, and Guatemalensis are really dominant. So it's interesting now. I'm kind of mixing dominance with dominance to see what happens, and it's fun.
And I guess you've got enough varieties, as you were sort of saying, that you can test virtually anything that you like. You're not really limited by availability. Like you've only got six of this, six of that. I can kind of only do what I can. When you've got, yeah, close to the 1,000 mark, you really aren't limited by anything but time, I guess.
Time and then just space. But in our case, we didn't even want all the acreage we had, and we were looking at and we bought our house in around 2009, and we were looking at condos for the same price.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I was like, oh, I don't need a yard, and now we have 2 acres, and that's where the madness started with plant collecting, and I've collected all sorts of other plants. We have a lot of different things, and really got into dragon fruit in 2019.
Roughly how long are you sort of spending in the yard each day?
Uh, Whenever I can. I mean, luckily I'm a teacher. I teach elementary school, so I get summers off, which is the busy time. But I'm out there almost every day checking on them. But at the same time, these plants are so resilient that they can handle being forgotten for a while if they're grown correctly and they've had some maturity and some roots. Honestly, I have a whole row. I probably should share it in a video one of these days of when people come over, they ask me why I neglected those plants and are they the bad guys or whatever, but they're just so far away, not on drip. And I haven't even watered them for probably 7 weeks. And they're happy. They're great. They're doing great. They got new growth, you know. It's established dragon fruit plants are hard to kill. That's
Yeah.
what I'll say.
When you're out in the yard as well, headphones in, headphones out. What's your sort of scene when you're out there?
Um, when I had my headphones in, I ended up cutting myself with a chainsaw. So that made me kind of realize that I prefer headphones out. I really I have a family, so I got to keep an eye on my kids. They're getting older, but if I'm out in the yard, and then we have dogs now and puppies, so I kind of have to be present and making sure that the rest of the family is not getting in trouble.
All right. I guess drink of choice after a hard day in the yard. Because 2 acres, I assume, would be middle of summer, you're walking around, lots of walking, lots of moving, that kind of thing. What'd you go to?
I was drinking a lot of soda for a while, and I gave that up, and now I drink Waterloos and stuff. But I'll put it this way: San Diego has a great craft beer scene. So if I need to kill some slugs, I might go get a nice craft beer. Probably my favorite, and probably you never heard of it, is North Park Beer Company. They're really good.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they make crazy, very creative. They're kind of like I like hops, so I like the different varieties. I find them really interesting, and a lot come from New Zealand. So I like to try those out every now and then, but usually a Waterloo of something, something healthy these days. As much as I want a Coke or a
Yeah.
cherry Coke, a vanilla Coke, I'd be down. But sometimes you just got to cut that sugar out.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Fair enough. Outside of gardening, outside of dragon fruit, hobbies. How do you kill your time? I'd imagine you wouldn't have a lot of spare time.
Yeah, I got more than you think. Let's see, hobbies. Well, I have a whole nother plant channel about like aodiums and grevilleas and proteas and aloes and palm trees and bamboo. So I grow all those in the front part of the yard. But I'm always doing something. I really like cars. I'm a car guy. So I used to work in auto parts. I used to work in construction in college. I was doing that. But no, I love vehicles, twin turbos and turbochargers and also, I'm very into cars. I'll put you. That's probably one of my other passions.
Oh, fair enough. Very good.
Yeah,
And
I'm actually. I got to tell you this. I'm working really hard to try to find Paul Thompson's truck because the founder of Dragon Fruit. I know it's a few towns away, and I found somebody that had it 10 years ago. So that's my goal. Is I want his 1965 Ford truck, red step sides with a 3 on the tree. So that's my long-term goal. So I'm going to keep bothering these people until I can find that thing.
and what are you gonna do with it when you get it? Are you gonna just tuck it away, sort of refurb
Oh,
it?
no, I would drive it. I mean, I
Yeah.
love, I would honestly, if I could afford it, I would probably soup it up and make it with like 800 horsepower, something ridiculous like two twin turbos or something fun.
Yeah, fair enough. And what's the name for those that aren't familiar? I'll link it in the description, but what's the name of your other plant channel as well?
It's what plant is that, Paul? We put our rare dragon fruit content on there as well, but I haven't done much with some other plants lately because I have been so busy with the dragon fruit. But this time of year, I really get into the other plants like our aloes bloom this time of year, our proteas bloom, our grevilleas, which are Australian. Like I said, I grow like 30 grevilleas, so I'll focus on those things and they're also some other passions I have. I like plants. I grow native plants as well.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right, and I guess this one's a little bit more dragon fruity, but what would you choose? You got two fruit, a good self-fertile or a great self-sterile.
To eat or to grow?
Go both.
Good fruit is good fruit. I feel personally people put way too much stress on self-fertility and sterile plants. If you grow 6 varieties, I would not even think about self-fertile versus self-sterile. Personally, I believe that most of the fruit that I like to eat are self-sterile. I cross-pollinate everything I can whenever I can. And then a lot of things that people don't share, especially some sellers, is that a lot of these self-fertile plants, they produce a fruit so small it's not even worth eating.
Yeah.
So like I said, and I could be wrong, but everything I've ever noticed is cross-pollination will make larger fruit.
All right. Not that they were really quick fire answers by any means, but I guess we'll go a little bit deeper. You can feel free to expand. You can go crazy on this one if you like. If they're short, I don't mind either. It's just about slowly picking that mind of yours. When did you get your first dragon fruit? I think you mentioned 2019 before. Do you remember what it was, where you got it from? What was the inspiration for getting that first one?
Well, the first one I don't count is actually about 2015, and I found it at it just was in Undatus, and it was at a cactus store because I collect a bunch of different cacti, and I was looking for a puntia, if I remember, like prickly pear, and I was looking for some variegated ones, and I came across this Hylocereus undatus. It was sickly little small plant, probably in a bunch of compost. And I thought it was a cactus, so I treated it like one, and it just did so poorly, I just threw it away.
Yeah.
And I didn't give much thought about it, and I saw that they grafted them to some of those moon cactus, and I was growing one of those, and then I saw that it was growing well, and I was like, well, okay, I could grow these, and I tried again, and my first variety that I bought was Haley's Comet from Home Depot, and it was a wrong variety as it turns out. It had this really cool symbol, but it was mislabeled. I've since thrown that variety away. And then I've started to research, and it's funny because I can't really ever trace back to the original Halley's Comet. I still don't know if it's Paul Thompson's hybrid or not. Probably is, or it's very similar. But that's where I started, and then I went same year. I went to my favorite nursery, and I was looking for grevilleas. Walter Anderson's in a place called Poway, where I grew up, Poway, California. And it's a really cool nursery, train stations. It's one of my favorite. But anyways, shorter version is that they bought Matt's Landscape. So I don't know if you're familiar with Matt's Landscape. It was a website with a really cutting edge, at the time, all the varieties and the names. And I think that their original source for spicy exotics. So they are around, they were one of the originals. They were after Elk Creek. But the owner had sold all the plants to Walter Anderson. And so I was all of a sudden getting Dark Star and Sugar Dragon and all these more common cultivars that we have or varieties. And it just really that's where it was over. Like once I started having a dozen of those, and that's where I kind of started the channel. You could see if you want to dig through those thousands of videos we have, the first ones, and some of them I've deleted over time just because I've redone them what I think is better and more accurate. But that's when I really got the bug in 2019, and we ended up going to the Pitahaya Festival in 2019. So I was able to see Edgar Valdivia present Asunta 5. And I got to taste Asunta 4 and 3. Probably my favorite fruit that day was Axe, believe it or not, it was really good. Sugar Dragon. I met grafting dragon fruit there, Paco as well. So a lot of people were there. It was a really exciting time. I saw Paco present on grafting dragon fruit. That's where a lot of the people that make videos now, he actually, I believe, is the really true one of the pioneering of grafters that people don't know about. That was very memorable. I mean, I'll give you some B-roll of that. I have some pictures of him because it was just really between Paco's speech and Edgar Valdivia's speech. I just felt really inspired. And that was game over for me after that. That's when I just started collecting. And, luckily, like I said, we have so much space that I was just dedicated the whole back of the yard to dragon fruit. But now
And I
it's
think
kind of a food forest. So I'm adding like mangoes, cherimoyas, atamoyas, bananas, all sorts of things. And just kind of, I think some of the dragons need some shade. So I'm using fruit trees now to provide that for them.
fair enough. I still remember, I think it was probably one of my very first videos I saw of yourself. I can't remember what year it was. I was going to try and look it up before I chatted with you, but I just ran out of time. You were doing a walkthrough. I think this might have been on the what plant is that, Paul?
Mhm.
You were doing a walk around and you had a big row of all these rare, fancy looking cactuses of all different heights and sizes and kind of colors. I think there were some bluey kind of tinged ones too. And I remember you were walking through the names and you're like, and this one's super, super rare, or you might have used whatever word. I can't remember what it was. It was like 4 years ago. But I remember you saying this one's super rare, like very few people have it. Next second you bumped it over and you snapped it in half or something. So the videos have come a long way since since those days. Um
Yes, yeah.
yeah, that was
It takes a while to get good at proficient at making videos, right? I mean, good subjective, but I'm sure you know that as well. I mean, you have a few videos yourself, but it's always a progression.
Yeah. We were chatting before we started here as well, before we started recording, about how so frequently I'll just instinctively knock a branch off or knock a bug off or do whatever. And as soon as I've gone past the point of no returns, I'll be like, that would have been excellent to share and similar sort of thing. Obviously, stuff you'd like to catch or not like to catch, like knocking over your super rare cactus, but it's all part of the fun and everything that makes this what it is. I guess following on from that, what inspired you to actually start making what plant is it, Paul or rare dragon fruit? Obviously, you start off with one, you're kind of burnt a little bit by getting the wrong cutting, but then you met those awesome people. Was it that, or was there something else that kind of inspired you to share?
Well, first, to be honest, I have to give the credit to Scott. He's the guy behind the scenes, Scott Harms. A lot of people don't know that, but he does all the editing. So I don't really have time or the ability. So long ago, he actually inspired and said, like, you know a lot about these plants. Before dragon fruit, it was just other plants I was growing. And he persuaded me to do it. I had no desire. And I probably for 2 years he said, like, dude, just make some plants, try it out, be fun. You share what you already, because I would just take people on tours anyways, like, hey, look at this, Scott, like, look at this new bamboo I got. And I'd explain everything about it. So he's actually the spark that started it all. And then Richard Lee from Grafting Dragon Fruit in 2019, he actually suggested that we started Rare Dragon Fruit. So I don't know if he still feels the same way, but he's the one that inspired Rare Dragon Fruit at the festival in 2019. He said that we should be just focused, have a channel just focused on dragon fruit.
Yeah, right. There you go. Does Scott do the editing sort of professionally? Like, can we give him a plug, or is it just a hobby for him? What's
Oh,
the
he
situation there?
does everything. He has a band. He's part of a band for they do 80s cover songs that are pretty big. We could I'll give you a link, but he's down to do whatever. He's made a lot of videos. That's just a passion of him and of his and a ability, a skill set he has. So no, if people reach out and want some he has a definitely cool style. I like how he does things. But no, that's a passion and a business. And like I said, he's very busy right now with his band. That's probably why we're not getting so much content up these days, so,
What do you
which is
mean
fine.
not enough con You've got like 1,000 videos. I see something pop up almost every day. What do you mean you don't have enough?
Yeah, well, that's different because I should say I do a lot of the shorts. I feel like a lot of the young, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but some of the younger generation, they're not as interested in those long format videos or having to turn their phone and keep it vertical. So I like just trying to do shorts, and I honestly just do them off the cuff, totally just, hey, really quick, one take usually. Like if I screw up pretty bad, I might do another take, but I can knock those out pretty quick. Or I just want to share like a lot of the potting soil things that I'm playing with and experimenting with. And if I get good results, I like to kind of see how things go before I share, especially this day and age with so many people trying to find what you did wrong. I like to try all things out before I share. And some of the things I just don't share yet just because I don't want to. I want to keep it to myself for now
Yeah.
until I feel like it would help others.
And I guess as well, like just from my experience, which is far sort of inferior and much shorter scale to yourself, but I find people would probably prefer to be given a little bit of information, every now and then rather than have it all accessible. No one's going to sit down and watch 1,000 hours of videos right now. Whereas if you drop it every 3 or 4 days or every 5 days or once a week, you're going to get that sort of following a lot better. Whereas if, you just dump everything on day one, people might watch two or three and be like, okay, I've kind of found what I want, or this isn't really what I want. I'm not going to look after the next one. But yeah, when it's
Mhm.
every week, you've got that thing to tick
For
off.
me, this might sound a little weird, but I do the videos more for me than for
Mm.
other people.
Yep.
One, it's kind of just refine how I'm trying to do things, and mainly I go back all the time just to I forgot something or I couldn't remember the date or where this variety was or things like that. So the videos are really helpful for me, like especially with my other plants. Is like I can't remember the aloe I bought last year that's making this crazy flower. So I had to go to my YouTube this morning and see what I did a year ago. And I was like, oh, it's Malibu peach aloe. So like for me, it's really helpful for myself just to, keep track. And then I enjoy it. I'm not a narcissist. I don't like watching myself all day, but I like to see how I did something like 4 years ago versus now. And
Yep.
so some of the content like I'll make this next season is I'll take a video that I did in the past. I don't even care if it's popular or not, but if I don't like it, I'll redo it better. Or maybe I'll say, back then I think I've gotten all the information off of Fox Farms because I had such problems with the compost and the soil and all the pathogens, and a lot of people disagreed with that and said I'm wrong, and that, made excuses for other plants or other opinions of other growers. So to me, it's just I mainly do it just I just I like it. Like I don't really care. I don't care about views or not. It's just I enjoy it. We don't make a lot of money off our YouTube. It's not paying for our cars or anything. It's it pays for potting soil. So to me, or sand, I should say nowadays, sand and
Yeah.
pumice and peat moss,
Yeah.
sunshine mix number 4, things like that. So to me, it's just fun. I enjoy it, and if I get sick of it, I could stop, and it wouldn't bother me. But I don't know. I've always been a person that likes to just share in my experiences or information, whether I'm right or wrong. I try to refine it and be as right as possible. But, opinions are like farts. Everybody's got them. So,
Yeah. Very good. I like it. And is that, I guess, how you stay motivated to keep doing what you're doing as well? Whether that's like in the garden, making content, all that kind of stuff. Because I'd imagine with 2 acres of space, 1,000 types of dragon fruit, there's probably days where you just like, I just can't be bothered pollinating or whatever. Like, how do you stay motivated to keep doing the incredible stuff you're doing?
well, thanks for thinking it's incredible. I just want to improve the variety. Like, I just feel like there's so much more like my goal is to make a full sun tolerant variety that tastes great, and others can enjoy in different places. And I've learned a lot from growers, like when Jackie from South Africa came and we toured Edgar, Valdivia, Great Martin, all those people's farms, and just learned from them. I mean, that I didn't record any of that, but I just learned so many valuable things, where I was able to observe and infer things that maybe weren't shared. But to me, it's just I just want to improve the variety, and really focus on how many things are the same names. Like Sugar Dragon has probably like 6 or 7 names now, and to correct that. So like my goal is I mean, I happen to live just fate from like the mecca of dragon fruit, where Paul Thompson's house is 15 minutes away, or Leo Manuel's house was 15 minutes to the south.
Yeah.
So I learned really quick, with especially buying that Home Depot's Haley's Comet that was wrong, that I wanted to find the oldest sources possible and get the oldest, most original stock I could. And that's kind of how I became friends with Leo Manuel, and, ended up buying his collection when he passed away, because that's the oldest collection in existence. And his plants, some of them are from 1998. And like his oldest, the Broxensis was from, I found a label, 1998. So
Right.
really quickly, probably by like 2020, I was seeing just how people were renaming things, like example of the wrong Rixford, right? That thing's got Tropicana, Rix, and all these other names, but it's the same fruit, and it's probably just G2 or G3, renamed.
Sure.
So I really quickly went to find the oldest sources possible. And I just happened to live in a place that allowed me to do that.
Definitely. No, fair enough. Fair enough. For those like of my audience that aren't sort of familiar too much with I guess, the American geography, how far, like, is this quite a niche little area, or is it near the main sort of San Diego
No,
strip
well,
kind of thing?
South San Diego is really more, you could grow more tropical things, but we're in more probably about, like, if I was in the city of San Diego, it'd probably take me about 40 minutes to get home,
Hmm.
and that's north. And then just North County, San Diego, the geography of it, that's where most of the avocados in California are grown.
Yeah.
And it's just a really, like, specifically Fallbrook, Bonsall, Vista. A lot of these places also grow the plants that they sell to Home Depots and the big box stores. So there's just a really huge gardening community in this area, and farmers have been around. My family ironically homesteaded Fallbrook, which is a pretty popular place to grow, and they were packing citrus in the 30s.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I mean, my family has been there for a long time. So it's just for perfect climate to grow these really amazing things.
Gotcha. Like many others, I've witnessed the sort of endless generosity from yourself. Like, you're giving up your time now. I've seen you on social media. You're always active, replying to comments, trying to, answer as many questions from the community as possible, trying to steer people the right direction. So I've seen you selling cuttings for $1. You've given them away, all that kind of stuff. I've seen a lot of others, not necessarily giving wrong information, but I've seen prices sort of reaching upwards of close to $100 more, maybe. I won't crop in a picture now, but I saw a picture the other day. Someone was selling a seedling that hadn't even fruited or flowered, and I think it was like $80. What's your what's your take on that?
I think that's the problem with the community in at least America or USA. Like, I was a member of like all the groups, and now I've honestly left just about all the groups online and just focus on the San Diego group because I want to help those people. And if they're in the group and ask a question, I'm just a person that wants to help. I feel like that's a big problem, and it's going to be bad for all of dragon fruit community in the long term because if a bunch of what I consider dorks or greedy people like ripping each other off, that's not good for dragon fruit in the long term. Having these really great fruit that people can enjoy and have been tested to some point, and a fair price. Like I personally don't think any cutting is worth more than $30. Like I don't, it could be one of a kind to me. It's just, I mean, these plants are not hard to grow. They grow pretty fast. And I think, if you're in it for profit, I think you're going to have a very different mindset. But to me, I just love the plants, man. I think they're so amazing and magical. And I think that people don't appreciate how much we really don't know about them. And to answer your question about the $80 unproven, that's like ridiculous. Like people like that, if I see it, I kick them out of the group. Like
Yeah.
I'm not big to kick people out, but if I have see people where like I kick some people out. I hate to say it's not nice of me, but I sell cutting for $10 and I see that same plant like a few months down the road for 50, I don't want those people to I feel like they don't need to be a part of my group or get the knowledge. Like they can go to those other groups and, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of greed and it doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
And I think if you're running a YouTube channel or if you're running a group, I think it's your responsibility to help and guide those people that are trusting you. But I will say this, I've learned a lot about looking at who the admins of groups are. And so once you start to see who the administrators are or who the moderators are, and you start to see it's sort of a cartel of people selling and ripping off their people, their members, in my opinion. And I'm not nice about that. I think it's bad for everybody. It's bad for dragon fruit in the long term. I think if we keep prices pretty fair and we keep varieties accurate and call out, the renames. And I think another thing is I haven't released it yet, but I've been working on grouping all of the varieties I've tasted um, like together. So like Dark Star, Kwangong Self-Fertile, I can name like six that taste like Dark Star.
Yeah.
Why should we should all know that? Like, you could buy Kwangong Self-Fertile that or something else like Arizona Red, like they could be the same thing or they taste so similar. Like Hoang Red's another one. Like I have like and even the hypodermic hybrid that we released this year,
Mm.
and sell it just as much as the other ones. They all taste pretty darn similar. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that especially sellers don't share is like, okay, I got, 500 varieties or whatever now and more. Well, probably about 50 taste, there's probably maybe 50 different tastes out of those, like
For sure.
so many of them just taste so much the same or so similar. It's like, why grow and promote them?
Yeah.
Like, pick the one that grows the best
Yeah.
and focus on that one. And in my opinion.
Yeah, we have quite a few over in Australia that virtually look the exact same as Pink Panther, but may have been renamed three or four different times. Yeah, three or four different names of the same looking fruit.
Yeah, I tried to call one of them out and they blocked me. So I saw that. And I also see that 7S is out there. I guarantee Paul Thompson 7S, and that's a lighter magenta flesh. It looks a lot like Pink Panther, but a smaller fruit. I probably I put the plant material together. I probably couldn't tell a difference.
Yeah.
I also know that some of the older hybrids that have gone to Australia, like people have Paul Thompson's number 7, I believe, out there. Well, that to me is the same as Valdivia Roja.
Yeah. Okay.
No, so people don't understand that, but I've grown like Valdivia Roja, Paul Thompson's number 7, and I have Jim Nitzel's number 7, and they're all the same. They're all Valdivia Roja, and the flower is the same, the taste is the same.
Mm.
So I've just noticed that even back then and early on, things have been mixed up too. More I get into it, I mean, I can talk all day about that, but I'll put it in the short term, like a lot of things that we think are true, like say American Beauty and Kwangong Self-Fertile are the same. Well, once I actually found the oldest Kwangong Self-Fertile, I realized that they're not, and there's a lot of hearsay that people take as truth. And so I'm one of the few people that wants to go make sure that's correct, and I have the ability and the space and
Yeah.
the plants. So to me, it's just accuracy is the most important thing for me.
And I think that's really cool that you're starting to group them together because I know a lot of people, and it's something I fell into a trap of very early on was, oh, this has a cool name, this has a cool looking fruit, blah, blah, blah. But then as I started picking them 2 or so years down the track, oh, this doesn't even taste that good, or this tastes the exact same as that one. And I've wasted trellis space on something that I kind of didn't like anyway. And with someone like myself, like my space is a hell of a lot smaller than yours. I think my yard, my allocated growing space is
Good
five
deck. You
meters
got a
by
cool
about
deck.
is yeah, it's 5 meters by 5 meters, and the wife's always trying to sort of encroach on that. We've currently got a pool on there as well, and she's like, we need room around the pool so that the just one of those little blow up ones, so the kids don't run into the spikes as they're jumping and running in the pool. But yeah, so I've only got what 5 meters by 5 meters. 5 meters is probably
15 feet. I know
15.
that
Yeah, so
one.
it's 15 feet by 15 feet. So, and that's like still a decent space. Whereas there's some people that may have a balcony or just one corner. And if they're growing something on one side and it's the exact same as the other side, like that's all they can do. So if that resource does eventually get created, and that would be such a spectacular resource, and yeah, it's something that I think the community would hugely benefit from, especially
I've
the
been
little scale growers anyway.
I've actually been working on it for about a month. I'm just not going to share it till it's done,
Mm,
because it might hurt some feelings too. Because I'm even ranking them as tiers. So
mm.
I'm calling them tier one, tier two, and tier three, which to me are ornamentals.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
and 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 then even like I'm noticing a lot of hybrids that are very popular have Stenopterus DNA.
Mm,
And if you're familiar with that plant, it makes the purple flower,
yep.
but it also provides an onion flavor for some,
Mm,
especially at the late season. So like Axe, people are starting to hate Axe, which I call Maggie's Axe because
mm,
Ray Martin saved it, but that's another story. But Axe, people are all hating it because it tastes that onion, but it's also due to the timing of picking it, could be pollination. There's a lot of factors.
yeah.
But at the same time, I'm grouping these things together of flavor wise. I think that's kind of changed how I feel about dragon fruit just because I'm starting to connect the dots of how many taste the same.
And I guess that's another thing too, going back, just because, and I've seen it myself firsthand. I'm sure you've seen it a lot more over in the States where there's probably a lot more growers. When people first make that hybrid, everyone wants their hybrid to be the one. Whether it's named after yourself, whether it's named after your wife or your kid or whatever, everyone wants some sort of contribution or that kind of thing. And you often see those huge prices, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's good. What tastes good to myself? I've tried some particular hybrids that someone's raved about and wasn't good. I've made hybrids probably similar to yourself, and I had one that was bright coral orange on the outside, looked absolutely spectacular. Bit into it, tastes like garbage. Could
Mhm.
have easily sold it as like coral cream or something like that, but doesn't mean it's good. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are, which is a real shame, releasing varieties just because it looks cool or it's got a cool flower and things like that. And it's not really making too much, I guess, benefit to the community besides to themselves, I think. I don't know. Like, have you noticed stuff like that yourself? Um,
All the time. I feel like a lot of people make profit off of that, or they'll sell it to certain people. And there's growers around here and YouTube channels that I am familiar with, and they actually set prices.
hmm,
So I've interviewed off the record. I interviewed not on YouTube or anything, but I interviewed a grower, a seller that has a YouTube channel, and that seller was bragging about how they set the prices for spicy exotics on certain hybrids, and whether that's true or not, but just that type of mentality of price setting to me is like it's freedom, man. If people want
hmm,
to pay $100 a cutting, let them. But
yeah,
I'm not going to ever charge for that because to me, it's not worth that. And
yep,
I personally think they're all about the same price to me.
hmm,
But there's a lot of people that want to feed their ego too, or just make a quick buck. But then there's also people that really try and really want to produce things well. In my opinion, I think the biggest piece of advice I could give your viewers right now would be, personally, I think anything that's a Guatemalan or a Undatus Guatemalan hybrid, those are probably hard to beat taste wise.
hmm,
If you're starting to make sugar dragon hybrids, that trait is so dominant. Not to mention the fact that who knows if it actually was cross-pollinated correctly. Because a lot of people are saying, oh, this is crossed with this, but did they bag it? Did
Mm.
they bag the flower?
Yeah.
Did they cut off the anthers first and do
Yeah.
it properly? That, a lot of people don't even know how to do.
Yeah.
Uh, those are key factors. And
Yeah.
and honestly, some of the seedlings, like I'm at the point, like some of my hybrids, I've mixed pollen and cross-pollinated, and I don't really care the pollen source because the pollen that I used were like my five favorite flowers that night.
Yeah.
So, and I'm really selective. Like last year, I was really careful about the pollen I used. And at the beginning of the season, I was using a lot of sugar dragon pollen, and all my fruit were small. And
Yeah.
then for the end of the season, and I don't know, it could be other factors, but I stopped using that pollen, only used the varieties that tasted good.
Mm.
And that just to me, it made bigger fruit and they were more enjoyable. Sometimes the parents don't matter when you're hybridizing, but sometimes they do. But if you really want to make a specific hybrid, you're gonna have to do it right. And I think a lot of people don't do that. Like I said, cutting off the anthers, bagging the plant so you don't get a pollinator coming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost impossible. We get ants in our yard so bad that who's to say that ant didn't go from one flower to the next
Yeah.
and
For sure.
cross-pollinate? Yeah, I hope I answered that question, but I feel like it could be done really well or done out of support or pureness of improving the community or just for profit. A lot of people want to look at dragon fruit as cash cows, especially some of these Assunta seedlings, like Assunta sevens are just crazy to me. Like, and then personally, like, for example, I'm talking about Assunta seven. I know a lot of people are into those and there's several variants, but if you really think about it, it's double back on Ocamponus.
Mm.
And if you've tasted Ocamponus, you know that that's an extremely dominant trait. It's a really dense fruit, and it's some people describe it as beady. So
Yeah.
to me, like the Sunta 7, I don't even want to personally, I don't own any.
Mm.
Well, actually, I think somebody gave me one. I think I have a wild berry Skittles, but I'm not sure what that one is. But I don't want to buy any Asunta 7s because it's got both Trisha pollen DNA in there from Asunta 5, and then it's got Valdivia Roja, which is a fruit I don't even grow that on a trellis anymore. I put them out on a rock pile because that's how much I like the fruit.
Very good.